So you've been diagnosed with prediabetes and you're scared and confused, and both of those things are normal. I remember when I self-diagnosed myself with prediabetes over a decade ago, I immediately decided to suck it up, to grow up, to start doing the things I needed to do to at least stop my prediabetes, if not reverse it, but at least stop it from turning into full-blown type 2 diabetes. I'm Dr. Ken Berry, a family physician with 20 years of clinical experience, and I had seen patients with type 2 diabetes suffer devastating consequences and complications and side effects from the medications that I prescribed for them. And I definitely didn't want that for myself. I also didn't want my family to have to suffer with me as I progressed from prediabetes to type 2 diabetes. Back in my early medical career, I firmly believed that prediabetes and type 2 diabetes were chronic progressive conditions that we couldn't do anything about with our lifestyle, with diet or anything like that. It was just more and more medications, more pills, more injections as the years went on until you died of a heart attack or stroke early in life, or even worse, lived to an old age as a type 2 diabetic with legs gone, with kidneys failed, with eyes blind. And I definitely didn't want that for myself. So I want to tell you how I reverse my prediabetes and how I keep it under control today easily and deliciously, and never have to worry about all those terrible complications of type 2 diabetes. Some doctors kind of discount prediabetes and say, oh, well, it's not too bad. You've got a touch of sugar. Don't worry about it. We'll check it again next year. The first thing I want you to understand with prediabetes is that all of those disastrous complications of type 2 diabetes, the damage is being done right now. Even if your A1C was 5.7, 5.8, just a little pre-diabetic, the damage is being done right now. And so I want you to understand how important your diagnosis of prediabetes is, but I also want you to understand the great opportunity you've been given. Now that you have this information, you can immediately start to not only prevent type 2 diabetes, but reverse your prediabetes, and you can do it just like I did. So years ago, when I was first diagnosed with prediabetes, I immediately started to make changes. I got motivated. I said, I'm not going to become a type 2 diabetic. And so I immediately started following the American Diabetes Association's guidelines for what I should eat and what I should not eat. And so I got rid of all the junk food with all the added sugars, all the desserts, all the soft drinks, all of that stuff. And I started eating lots of whole grains and lots of fruits and vegetables. I cut way back on saturated fat because that's what the ADA said to do. And I started jogging 3 or 4 days a week. Now, that sounds like a good plan, right? That's what most people would do. But here's the thing. When I rechecked my numbers 3 months later, I had actually gained more weight. I was morbidly obese at that time, and my prediabetes had actually gotten worse. And that was a shock to me as a family doctor. And so I kind of went back to the drawing board to say, what the hell just happened? I'm doing everything they said to do, and my prediabetes actually got closer to becoming type 2 diabetes. And so I did lots of reading, lots of research, lots of thinking, and this is what I came upon to reverse my prediabetes. And you can use this for yourself as well. So after my prediabetes diagnosis, I got a glucometer, and I highly encourage you to get either a glucometer, which is a blood sugar checker. You prick your finger and check your blood sugar, or better yet, get a continuous glucose monitor. Some people call these CGMs. And so I got one and started using it after I had failed to improve my prediabetes by following the ADA's guidelines and jogging. And I started to check my blood sugar both before I would eat and after I would eat, and I checked it multiple times a day. A CGM's better because you don't have to prick your finger multiple times a day. You put the little probe in and you're done for 2 weeks. And what I started to notice that when I would eat a meal that had lots of carbohydrates, whether they were processed carbohydrates like bread or whether they were natural carbohydrates like fruits, my blood sugar would spike up. And I knew from being a doctor, you may not know this, but I'm about to tell you, when your blood sugar is high like that, you're actually glycating all of the cells and tissues in your body. And that leads to all the damage and all the pains and aches and inflammation from being a pre-diabetic or a diabetic. And so even when I would be eating natural, organic, non-GMO fruits, my blood sugar would spike up really high. And this is not even measuring the fructose. That's just measuring the glucose that I got from the fruit. Little known fact is that the fructose from fruit and from grains actually glycates your cells and tissues more than glucose. And so even though when I rechecked my A1C, which is glycated hemoglobin, right, it had went up because I was eating so many more grains and so many more fruits and vegetables, because the ADA told me that's what I should do. I was actually glycating my cells more than I was back when I was eating the just junk food. And so I started to eat lower carbohydrate meals. And I would notice when I did this, my blood sugar wouldn't spike as high. And when I would eat meals that were completely carbohydrate free, like for breakfast, I would have bacon and eggs, I would have no blood sugar spike whatsoever. And so bacon and eggs has no glucose to speak of and definitely has no fructose. And therefore, I would have no blood sugar spike. And I thought, well, if my blood sugar is not spiking, then I'm not glycating my hemoglobin or anything else for that matter. That's very good. And so I continued to do that. I kind of trailed off on the jogging because, first of all, I hate to jog. Secondly, it was making my knees hurt to jog that much, so I quit that, but I continued eating a lower and lower carbohydrate diet. And after 3 months of doing that, my A1C, my hemoglobin A1C, had actually gotten much, much better than it was eating the American Diabetes Association diet, and even better than it was when I was eating the junk food diet. So I thought, I must be really onto something here. How come no one else is talking about this? Why is the ADA not talking about a low carbohydrate diet? And a little further down the road, I discovered the ketogenic diet. Then further down the road, I discovered a carnivore diet, which is essentially a zero carbohydrate diet. And using a ketogenic diet, and then the other big tool, which is intermittent fasting. So when I combined a ketogenic diet, which is a very, very low carbohydrate diet, it's low in added sugar, but it's also very, very low in natural sugars, and implemented 16 to 18 hours of intermittent fasting every day. It's very easy if you're eating a high-fat diet like the ketogenic diet. It's high-fat, high-protein. Therefore, you're just not hungry as much. You don't get those every 2 hour munchies or the every 2 or 3 hour hangry feeling like when you're eating lots of whole wheat bread and lots of fruits and lots of other carbohydrates. You don't get those things. You're just full and happy, and you can actually get on with your life, either work hard or play hard, whichever one you need to do at the moment. So to sum up, I used a very low carbohydrate. Some would call it a ketogenic diet, some a low carb diet, some a carnivore diet. I call it the proper human diet because I think human beings are by design low carbohydrate animals. If you feed us too many carbohydrates, whether they're from junk food like donuts and pizza crust, or whether they're from much more natural carbohydrates like fruits and vegetables, if you feed a human being too many carbohydrates, they become pre-diabetic and ultimately type 2 diabetic. I have reversed my pre-diabetes years ago, and I've kept my hemoglobin A1C at a very, very low level, low normal, very healthy level. I'm having much less glycation of all my tissues. I have much less inflammation now, and I never have to worry about becoming a type 2 diabetic. This is all with not really exercising that much and eating a diet that is delicious and nutritious and very satiating. I'm just not hungry for many, many hours of every single day. Now, I've got a playlist on this channel of all the strategies I use to reverse my prediabetes, and you can do the same thing. It works for every single human being on the planet with prediabetes. It also, if you've already been diagnosed with type 2 diabetes, it's going to help you completely reverse your type 2 diabetes. It is the Keto 101 playlist and the Intermittent Fasting 101 playlist. If you like lots of meat in your diet, then you can watch the Carnivore 101 playlist. That does the same thing as keto when it comes to reversing prediabetes. So now that you know this information, I want you to understand there's hope. You're not doomed. You're not going to become a type 2 diabetic. You can absolutely reverse your prediabetes within weeks and never become pre-diabetic again. This is Dr. Berry. I'll see you next time.